We have become fat and average.
Yeah.
Fat and average is the new normal.
Loz, recording is in progress.
Thanks for having me, Brett. It's always a pleasure to chat.
The first thing that came to mind for me is, it's like you've dealt with some serious shit in your life, physical and psychological stress, how that kind of informs your coaching.
That's a really good question, Brett. I think most coaches you'll find typically have a personal attachment to the thing that they help people solve, which makes them really driven, mission orientated to help serve people at that level, because it almost becomes a conversation of, well, if I can get through that and if I can do it, you can too. So in regards to how it informs coaching, I guess the biggest struggle for me was that I didn't realize how average my life was, and how much I took my life for granted until it was sort of taken away from me, and all of the freedoms and liberties that I had, mobility wise, health wise, mindset wise, slowly started to diminish over time. And I guess the challenge for me was that, being such a resilient person by nature, due to my upbringing, cultural circumstances, etc., I know no other way than to push through it, and call that what you may. But that sort of led me to unpack why it was that I was stuck, rather than, play that game of victim mentality, and move through the challenges in a very pragmatic way. And so coming out the other side of that tunnel of all of the challenges, seeing how easy it actually was in retrospect to fix all those problems just by focusing on the habits, rather than eating the elephant at once, because you're going to choke. You eat it one bite at a time, except if you're vegan. Apologies if I've offended anybody.
I like elephant, yeah.
But the reality is that, looking back at that and going, most of the challenges that I overcame were by pulling things apart and doing, attacking one battle at a time to solve the problem. That's now how I coach. So many of these personal development gurus are out there going, you can live an amazing life. You can have everything you want. You just got to manifest. That word manifest is doing my head in at the moment. It's literally, it's so overused. You don't manifest stuff, guys. You can't just sit there hoping. Hope is a fallacy. People go, oh, I hope one day I'm going to be fit and healthy. No, that's bullshit. I call bullshit on that. Hope doesn't exist in the context of that conversation. Engineer your own path to the life that you want. And that's how I coach people, because that's what I've done. And I think that having an inspired goal or an inspired promise that you're going to make to yourself, I think they are all really intentional ways of being purposeful about what it is that you do. But at the end of the day, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
What sort of people do you attract? Given your background, do you find you attract people who are looking for that degree of energy and purposefulness, or what?
This sounds terrible, but a bright light attracts moths. That is the nature of humans. We are attracted to things that inspire us. Some people are repelled, but a lot of people are attracted. Previously, I was attracting and I was working with people who I found had this idea that they could achieve the same thing that I could achieve, but didn't want to put the action and the time into understanding what that felt like. It was like almost, hey, can you exercise for me? Can you eat the healthy food for me? Can you sleep better for me? Can you take some time out for me?
They've got the want, but they don't have the commitment.
Yeah, and so the challenge is that there wasn't enough at stake. And for those people, it just is what they weren't ready. They weren't at that right stage of behavioral change. Now I am more inspired and driven to help business owners and busy professionals actually prioritize their health, their wellness habits, so that they can live an unstoppable life.
I just want to give you a chance to rant about the people who are not like that. I've got this conversation about what is wrong with people, where you go, here is a product which will get you the behavior change that you haven't been able to make for 10 years. And people are like, oh, that's interesting. It's like, no, why don't you want to sign up and do this? So why are there people out there who are not interested in behavior change? It drives me nuts.
because the system enables laziness and the system enables averageness. And averageness is not a word, but it's a word I'm going to use. And the reality of the situation is that we have softened ourselves in terms of prioritizing the things that matter. And everything's so easy now. If you fall, the system will catch you in most circumstances. And so there isn't a longing for change. Like, everything's too easy, Brett. And we've actually become, and I always love to say this because it's such a controversial thing to say, we have become fat and average. Fat and average is the new normal. And when you aren't that, and you are fit and awesome or unstoppable, people are threatened by it sometimes. And so because people's own inadequacies are projected onto others in a lot of circumstances, that then becomes a resistance to a mechanism that could actually solve all of their friggin' problems. But it's too easy to sit in inaction.
And it's also people who are not that fat and not that average. They can just go, well, I'm not as overweight as that person over there or the person I'm living with or whoever it is. So there's no clear and present danger in their mind. There's no trigger for action.
But we enable all of that. If you look socially, even with advertising, the pivot in advertising, like everybody's just this average person now. Like,
that's right.
If you are fit, especially in a town like where I live, if you are fit and you don't have a face for radio, but if you're fit and healthy and vibrant and living your best life, it's like the crabs in the bucket scenario. If a crab tries to escape a bucket full of crabs, all of the crabs, as soon as it gets almost to the top, all the crabs will bring it back in. If you hang out with 5 average people, you'll be the 6th.
Hey, we're going to talk about the car.
The car conversation. Tell me about the car conversation.
You own a very smart looking red Mercedes sports car, which you decided to sell on Facebook Marketplace. And unlike normal people, Loz, who would just take a bloody photo and put it on Facebook, you've gone out and found a professional photographer, dolled yourself up in your gym kit.
The real story is that my active life is no longer suited to my impractical car. I have a Mercedes convertible with a very small boot. I'm now storing a lot of stuff on the front seat. I have been thinking about selling my car for about 3 months now. And this week, leading towards the end of the month, I just thought I'm going to chuck it up on Facebook and the only photos I have are from a professional photographer from when I was doing bodybuilding bikini shows and a couple of other things. They're not the best photos, but I knew that the choice of those photos would actually attract a lot of attention, which is clever marketing anyway. And I knew that if I put those photos up, people's eyes would start getting on them. And by the time I wash my car, which will be after this conversation, I'll be washing and detailing my car and taking better photos. But anybody that had engaged with that ad because they were attracted by the sexy photos would then they would get pinged as soon as it was updated. And so my ad would get in front of more people. Now, what I didn't realize is that 4 days later, I'd have over 1,000 clicks on my ad and over 1,000 nasty comments from mainly women accusing me of being trashy, mutton dressed as lamb, looking like promiscuous, looking like a man. I've been accused of being a man.
I've seen the photos. You don't look like a man.
Yeah, I know, right? But people saying, is she selling herself? Is she selling the car? Does she come with a car? And, the thing is, with all of the shit and turmoil and challenges I've overcome, Brett, nothing offends me. It's nearly impossible to offend me. Right. I find the humor in everything and I'll always see the lighter side. People don't realize they can actually just scroll past, but instead they feel so obligated to comment on things, and they don't realize that every single time they do that, they're just perpetuating the strategy in the first place, which is my organic marketing strategy, getting it infiltrating deeper and deeper into their network.
It made me sad because I'm like, here is an act of self-expression. Like, it was really ballsy to do that.
I don't give a shit what people say.
Yeah, I think they see the self-expression as a threat as well. It's like, how come you're free enough to do that?
Why on earth would I have average pictures of an amazing car getting lost in the sea of other average pictures of other cars in Facebook?
Yeah.
And so lo and behold, 3 days later, I've gained 2 clients. I've gained a handful of people liking my Facebook page. I've gained all these new friends on Facebook. People want to be my friend because they look at my replies and they're like, who is this chick with these smart ass replies?
I read on your background that you were teased about your looks as a kid.
Totally. I was bullied heavily at school. So call me a late bloomer, call me whatever it is you want. But big bum, no boobs, big witch nose. I've had plastic surgery and I'll be the first to admit that. And you too can buy lips and cheeks just like mine. Give you the name of my surgeon. The reality is that as a child, because I was bullied and because it was all based on the way that I looked and I was never popular, it forced me to actually identify myself as an intellect. So because of those circumstances, I threw myself into sport, I threw myself into theatre, I threw myself into, my studies and, broaden my horizons in a way so that I could have a quick wit and I could fight back with words. My dad taught me a lot of that. And then growing up as a teenager, like never had a boyfriend, boys were never interested in me, discovered this version of whatever the hell that was, this heightened femininity as I sort of turned 18, 19, went through a stage. I've always found myself drawn to more masculine spaces. I was in IT, I was in engineering and physics and all of those sort of STEMs-based subjects at school, and then ended up in humanities at the end of my university degree. And, doing bodybuilding and rediscovering myself after my first husband died, that was when I really started to understand the polarities of feminine and masculine energies. And now I feel like I have a really good synergy of both of those. And we all have that. I had this conversation on International Women's Day. We think that being empowered females is all about being resilient and being strong and being tough and standing up to the man. And I say, actually, I call bullshit on that because that's actually a really masculine paradigm. So where females have an advantage is on the other side of that coin is that we can be soft, we can be vulnerable, we can surrender and understand that there is emotion and there's love and kindness and joy and silence. And, that's a really strong feminine feature that a lot of men struggle to identify with. And when I realized those polarities have to meet somewhere in the middle, that's where you grow real confidence.
That's fantastic, Loz. Really, really wise insight. And also interesting from the viewpoint of I got teased for my looks. And look what I did with that. I just created all this stuff out of teasing.
And then I changed my looks. Like, I had a problem with my nose. I couldn't breathe. So I had a septoplasty because I needed one. And I thought, well, if you're going to go there, you may as well give me a rhinoplasty at the same time. Yeah. So I had a nose job at 2014 and then had revision surgery in 2015 because I stuffed it up. I've had my boobs done. You know what? You can't grow boobs in a gym. You can't, no matter how much you work. In fact, you'll lose them. You'll lose them if you work out hard. I can't change the features that I've had updated. You can only do those through surgery. But I still believe that if you work hard, your body will be reflective of that work. Your mindset will be reflective of that work. And why not make the inside resilience shine bright on the outside and align those two? So I believe in nipping and tucking. If you choose to do that and that's what you want to do, it's not about a lack of confidence.
And it's not compulsory.
It's about honing. It's absolutely non-compulsory and it's all personal choice. Girls that do bodybuilding shows and cycle steroids and they tout themselves as influencers and have these amazing bodies, but they're cycling illegal drugs. And some of these girls that they sell programs to have these unrealistic expectations about what they can achieve, men as well.
Yeah. And
yet, because these people aren't authentic in saying, hey, by the way, just so you know, I've been injecting myself with all sorts of shit. And if you want to have a body like this, you actually can't actually just get that from my programs that I'm selling you. I'm actually selling you a false version of reality. And so to me, and as a coach, I think that's really important as a moral compass to go, this is the kind of coach I'm going to be. These are the kind of clients I'm going to attract. I'm going to call bullshit on all of those influencers who aren't being realistic and authentic, because you can live an amazing life, but you have to be true to yourself.
That's an interesting point because, we're in an industry, coaching, which is, unregulated. Where is the code of conduct or the code of ethics that says, if you're selling a product to someone, you shouldn't be able to lie about the effectiveness of it.
It is a misrepresentation of reality, and I do find that happens a lot.
I remember talking to a guy who said he did a program with a guarantee that you would look like this at the end of it. And he did the program absolutely letter perfect. He was a fanatical guy. He followed it completely. At the end of it, he's gone, that didn't work.
And that's the challenge. Coaching has become like this new trendy profession. People quit their jobs and become, I'm a coach. Cool, I get that. But what is it that you actually do? What are the outcomes that you achieve for your clients? Do you articulate that correctly? And do you actually solve people's problems, or you're just making them worse? Because a lot of people out there, and I know them personally, that do not have qualifications, do not have certifications, have just copied off this, that, and the other, and are selling high ticket programs to vulnerable people because they use hypnotic language to tell them that they really just need their products. And at the end of the day, those people invest so much time and money into these programs expecting these outcomes, like your friend. And then they go, well, that was a bloody waste of time and money.
Risk works much better than reward. And everyone understands that in the neuroscience world.
And especially monetary risk.
Exactly right.
Because we have such an attachment to money in this Western society. It's the biggest exchange that we have.
And if you have the possibility of losing money, you think you're going to die. That's what really happens in your brain. Your brain goes, oh, threat to my survival. I might lose money here. And when you get into the survival circuitry of the brain, that's the part of the brain most open to change. The rest of the brain does not want to know about change if it can avoid it. That's why it works.
Science is why money works great.
And you can do it without money as well. You don't have to use money, but money works best. It does, really. You make a promise and about what you're going to do every week, and then you put some money at stake. And then at the end of the week, if you do what you say, then you get your money back. It doesn't cost you anything. And, you've changed your behavior. If you don't do what you promised, then you forfeit the money that you staked to charity. And then we take a fee from that. You can use the app by itself and it works great. On the testing we've done, it works 80% of the time in our prototyping. The weakness in the model that we've got is that it requires people to be honest about their results. And people are sleazy and they don't want to be held.
And it's the accountability.
That's right. They don't want to be accountable. And if they don't tell anyone what they're doing, it's very easy to go, oh, look, such and such happened and the circumstances were this way. And therefore, it's perfectly okay that I didn't do my swims this week and I'll keep the $50 or the $100 or whatever it is.
Cognitive dissonance, right?
Exactly. And of course, as soon as they do that, they undermine the effectiveness of the tool because the tool works because there's a threat there. If you're working with a coach, that's far less likely to happen because who's going to lie to a coach? I've employed you to empower me. I'm not going to lie to you about whether I did that or not, and much, much less likely. So we think we can get it from 80% effective, where it is now, to 90% effective. And that,
a big jump.
I mean, a big, big jump.
Brett, I'd love to know what's been your personal experience using the app.
When we created the product, I decided I'd use it to study Spanish because I just got back from South America. I'd done some Spanish. I loved it, but I really dropped the ball on it. So I thought, well, I'll stake some money in order to study Spanish every day. And it worked great for me. I recently completed 1,000 days in a row studying Spanish. I didn't miss a single friggin' day in 1,000 days. The model is it doesn't cost you any money if you don't lose. I basically had 1,000 days worth of motivation at no cost. Worked great. And when people want to take on something new, they need extrinsic motivation to do it. Right? They need an external reward
in the beginning,
or risk.
Always, yes.
The first few weeks, probably the first couple of months even, it was all about avoiding losing money in my head. But what happens is it switches and it becomes habitual, and then it becomes intrinsically satisfying. So it becomes, look at me, I'm reliable. And you take satisfaction in that.
You actually reprogram your entire brain. You rewire neurological pathways, which actually, instead of relying on this extrinsic motivation, we're actually able to rely on our value systems and our belief systems have become part of our identity, which are more, intrinsic. And then you don't need the extrinsic thing anymore. But then you can apply that to another, it's this compound effect of habit stacking, and you do one habit after the other. And this is why I love the program, because as an app, like it's reinforcing those positive behaviors with a risk aversion at stake. There's always a risk if you don't do it, but if you do it, then it's positive reinforcement. And if we look at habit stacking and we look at the way that we want to change our life, this is why coaching for me is so important, because it's about breaking it down into like daily things, momentary things. What's happening today? Did you do the thing today?